I was 28 years old when I realized that I was raised by a prostitute. Let me explain. I was at an event in the Bronx where I was listening to a man's original poem, and he described a woman who shared a room with her daughter. And the only thing that separated their bed was a sheet. And she spoke about the daughter seeing the woman bring random men inside of her home and describe the sounds, the smell, and so much more. And by the middle of this man's poem, I found myself in tears, just literally sobbing because I resonated with what it was that he was describing. Now, I grew up in a home with my mom, my grandmother, and my siblings. And for a certain period of time, we did live separate from my grandmother. And that was probably when I first started seeing my mother with a lot of men. It was actually the first time I started seeing my mom with a lot of men. When we moved to South Carolina, my mother would bring a lot of men around. And I know it was mainly because she was a single parent and she needed assistance, but it was a lot on me because my mother forced me to speak to these men, to build relationships with these men. She would tell them, oh, my daughter needs a father and all of these things, right? So I was used to seeing my mother with a lot of men. But this particular experience was different. It was a man, we're going to call him Bingo. And Bingo was a man who worked at a hospital. And we would go to that hospital and my mother would go speak to him and I would think nothing of it. One day, I remember my mother saying, oh, I'm having company, and having this chaotic energy, getting dressed, like getting in the shower. And she was making the announcement because she shared a room with one of my siblings. And I remember my sibling having a huge outburst because they just couldn't understand, why would you be having company when you share a room with me? What are you talking about? Lo and behold, because it wasn't clicking to me what she was actually doing. But this man comes into the house, comes into the room for maybe 15 minutes and leaves. And when he left, I watched him go in and I watched him come out. He looked like he had been moving his clothes around. Let's just say that. I wasn't inside the bedroom, but because I've watched my mother throw her sexual energy on men my entire life, my mother had me when she was 22 years old. My conception story is one that I shared recently. What I've heard from both sides of the family, because I've never heard anything about my father from my mother. What I heard from both sides of the family was she was chasing after the Mercedes Benz. Everybody keeps talking about the Mercedes Benz that he had on my side and on his. So it's like I'm hearing and I'm seeing how my mother is behaving. So when I'm asking myself, what would make a woman want to disrespect her daughter so badly? I have to stop looking at who she is to me as my mother and look at the behavior and what she does. A prostitute, a woman that sells herself because she doesn't see value within herself. And let me be clear, this is not me shaming prostitutes. This is me speaking on the experience that I had with watching my mother be a prostitute, watching my mother sell herself short to the point where she can do the same to me. Growing up, I had so many issues with my mother because of the way she spoke to me, the way she dealt with me. It was clear that she had an issue with me, but I couldn't understand why. Being an adult now, I can look back and see my mother was taking out all her shame, anger, and embarrassment for how she moved around with her sexual energy onto me. I was being called all types of bitches, all types of hoes, sluts. I remember, again, at 12 years old, we were living in South Carolina, and we had an incident where I went to the mall, came home, and then snuck back out to go to the mall with some friends. Kid shit, right? And when I got caught, Of course, my mother was upset. But one of the things I remember her asking me is, why is your knees ashy? And I was like, I don't know. I was crawling across the carpet because we had carpet and you can't walk across the carpet. And she said, that better be the only reason why you were on your knees. Because I was so young, I did not understand it in that moment, but I knew by the way that she said it that she was trying to belittle me, trying to disrespect me. And I was used to her using this tone with me because this is how my mother always behaved with me. But that stuck out to me and I never forgot it. And when it clicked in my mind one day as to what she was talking about to her 12-year-old daughter, I was just like, wow, what were you doing in your youth that you would actually say to your 12-year-old child that the only reason why she had better been on her knees was to be crawling across the carpet? Why would you be insinuating anything else? But when I take a step back and I stop looking at this woman as my mother, I can see her for some of her other characteristics. And I can accept her for those characteristics. As an adult, even though I moved away from my mother, I still experienced the community slander, the attacks against myself and my business, my character, my morality, the making up of stories. It's just insane and it's ridiculous. And I want to understand why. And this is how I've come to understand, by accepting her for who she is and what she does. Now, moving forward with my life, I've really been on a journey of redefining myself, my moral standards and values, my self-worth, and building my relationship with God, trusting myself, having faith in myself, surrendering to my intuition, surrendering to my path, has allowed me to see how valuable I am and to create moral standards and values that protect, provide, and uplift me. And even though I was raised by a woman who was a prostitute, amongst many other things, and raised by a grandmother who was a drug dealer, amongst many other things, my choice to do something outside of what it is that I've seen in my community is my journey to walk alone. And now that I accept that, I can finally move forward. I've been wanting to make different content and wanting to do something different, but this is what I've experienced for the first 3 decades of my life. So I will talk about it, and I will talk about how I've healed from it, how I'm learning to heal from it, everything that I'm doing, because it's important to me. I wish that I had this version of myself when I was growing up, because that's exactly who I was looking for. So I hope you enjoyed the video. My name is Yasmin. If you are interested in content like this, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.